I have held this job for 11 years, and in all that time, I had never once fat-fingered a pulse header. I want that on record. I want it understood that the error was small, one transposed pair of digits in a sector identification prefix, the kind of thing the system is supposed to catch, the kind of thing the system failed to catch that night, and that everything which followed was the direct consequence of a single digit being a 3 where it should have been an 8. The platform is called Outer Survey Anchor 12. It sits at the edge of the Keth sector's monitored volume, which is a polite way of saying it sits at the edge of everything anyone in the Dominion still cares about. My job is maintenance telemetry. I monitor the buoy grid, renew their signal leases every 90 cycles, and file a log entry when one of them drifts past its tolerance band. It is not glamorous work. It is the kind of work that gets done at the third watch of the night cycle by one person sitting in a chair that was not designed for 11 years of sitting. The Buoy-Renewal pulse is a form transmission. I have sent it thousands of times. I call up the header template, fill in the sector prefix, the buoy array identifier, the timestamp, and the authorization code, and then I send it. It takes less than 4 minutes. On the night in question, I was also trying to eat a meal at the same time, which I mention not as an excuse, but as context, because context matters when you're later asked to explain why you accidentally send a distress beacon into human space. I did not know I had done it. The header template for the Buoy-Renewal pulse and the header template for the emergency distress override differ by exactly one field in the sector prefix block. The renewal pulse uses a Keth Dominion internal routing code. The distress override uses an open band emergency code that the old treaty networks still propagate. I entered the emergency code. Specifically, I entered the emergency code for a subsector that happened to resolve through a mesh of ancient relay agreements that nobody has fully audited in the better part of 2 centuries to a routing block that included the Terran Courier drone network. I sent the Buoy-Renewal pulse. The system accepted it. I ate my meal. I filed the log entry. I went to sleep. 41 hours later, my commander called me into the operations room at a brisk pace I had not seen from her in 3 years, and she pointed at the transit arrival register without saying a word. There was an entry. The entry showed a vessel type I did not recognize. The vessel's transponder was broadcasting in a format our system identified as Terran, and the vessel was currently holding station approximately 800 kilometers off the platform's docking spine, which is where you hold station when you have arrived in response to a distress call and are waiting to confirm that the distress is real. My commander looked at me. I looked at the header log I had filed 41 hours earlier. I found the error in slightly less than 90 seconds, which was probably a personal best for a moment I would have preferred to take longer on. I told her, have sent an SOS to the Terran Courier mesh. She said nothing for a long time. By accident, I added, the Terran vessel was not a warship. I want to be precise about this because the internal report I later filed made much of it, and I think the distinction matters. It was a Courier-class vessel, small, fast, lightly armed in the way that all Terran vessels are lightly armed, which is to say armed more than any Courier from any other civilization in this sector of the galaxy. But still, it was not the Black Armada. It was not a frigate or a dreadnought or anything with a meaningful hull rating. It was, as near as our scanner package could determine, a one-pilot mail and cargo runner that had been retasked by Earth's emergency mesh the moment my errant pulse arrived, because Earth's emergency mesh does not wait for confirmation before dispatching. It parses, it routes, it sends. The pilot opened a channel to the platform 12 minutes after my commander and I had our conversation. The channel header was polite. The translation overlay flagged the register as neutral professional. Outer Survey Anchor 12, the pilot said, this is Terran Courier Vessel Practical Margin on approach hold. We received a priority distress on your sector coordinates. Timestamp 41 hours, 14 minutes prior. We are holding pending your situation update. If the distress is ongoing, please transmit your current status, and we will render what assistance is within our capacity. If the distress has been resolved, please transmit a closeout confirmation, and we will log the incident and depart. Standing by. That was the complete message. My commander looked at me again. I drafted the closeout confirmation. She revised it twice, which I thought was generous given the circumstances. The final version explained that the distress signal had been transmitted in error as the result of a header misentry during a routine maintenance pulse, that the platform was operating within normal parameters, and that we apologize for the unnecessary deployment. I sent it. Practical Margin acknowledged receipt in under 4 minutes. Then, instead of departing, it sent a second packet. The second packet was not what I expected. I had expected, if I am honest, some form of administrative consequence. A cost recovery notice. A formal protest through the treaty channels. Something that would eventually find its way up my chain of command and result in a conversation I did not want to have. That is what happens in the Dominion when someone wastes emergency resources. There are forms. There are reviews. There are notations in personnel files. What Practical Margin sent was a maintenance index. It was an index of 12 standard Terran emergency services protocols that applied specifically to single-operator relay platforms in remote sector positions. The packet was labeled, in translation, supplementary reference, forwarded as courtesy, no action required. Attached to the index was a standing contact frequency, a Terran mesh address registered to something called the Sector Welfare Relay, which appeared, based on the header metadata, to be an entirely automated system that monitored distress pattern signals across a very large volume of space, and had been doing so, quietly, for a number of years that I did not look up too closely because the number made me feel something I could not immediately categorize. There was a note at the bottom of the packet. One line. The translation overlay gave it to me in flat, neutral professional, the same register as the rest of the message. If you are genuinely alone out there, the frequency is always monitored. Then Practical Margin closed the channel, logged the incident as resolved, and departed. I have read that line perhaps 40 times since. I'm not sure why. The platform is operating within normal parameters. The buoy grid is current. I have not made another header error, but I pulled up the maintenance index they sent, and I read it. All 12 protocols. It took the better part of an evening watch, which is the watch I usually spend eating and filing log entries and, apparently, accidentally hailing the wrong civilization. The protocols were practical. Useful, in fact. There were 2 in there that covered maintenance procedures for the exact buoy drift scenario I had flagged in my last quarterly report, procedures I did not have in my own reference library. I saved them. I also saved the contact frequency, though I have not used it. I'm not entirely sure what I would say. The incident is closed. The mistake has been corrected. The platform is by every measurable definition fine. It is just that the third watch of the night cycle is very long when you're the only one on the platform. And it has been 11 years, and the Keth sector's monitored volume is a polite way of saying the edge of everything anyone still cares about. And somewhere in the Terran mesh, there is an automated system that has been quietly listening across a very large volume of space. Not because anyone asked it to, not because there's a treaty requiring it, not because the coverage area makes strategic sense, but because the frequency is, apparently, always monitored. I've been thinking about that. I do not know what to do with it yet, but I have the frequency, and the third watch is long, and one of these nights, I may send a message that is not an accident.